Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clinton Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 183 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Man alive, I gotta hire me a better maid because somebody's dragging and not getting their job done. I've still gotta finish picking everything up, so I'm gonna strip this clay from, the armatures basically that supported these leaves. I'm just going to strip this and get it back in the bucket and really work on wrapping everything up here so stuff can be put away. I'm going to try to clean if I can get any clay off of these molds. I think I've got most of it already, and keep working on making this into a viable studio. I got to put the barrel away, and I got a lot to do, so I'll work on this and then I'll get back, because the next thing I really want to get done after I pick up is I want to work on mounting up the point machine. Okay, so we'll be back in a little bit and get on that. Got most of my stuff straightened out and ready to go back where it needs to be. And I'm working on mocking up my workstation. So let's try to address what I need. I like to have my model where I can reference it, so I can stand back here where the camera is, look at my stone, look at my model, and make sure things are right. Use my riser, my pallet, my short riser, put it on a couple of 6x6s that I slid under the stone so that I can be right up close to it. Because I need to be able to stand up there so I can be at, working straight into her face and her upper chest. It's easy to knock this down. This is why we use these things. You can lift that off. It takes just a couple of seconds to move those blocks and go down, or to put a couple more blocks in there with just a piece of plywood on top and stand at that level. So probably what I'm going to do, because this is a nice piece here that's already trashed, I'm going to take that cleat off the back. That's the table that we just worked on, okay? Because this is nothing special, I'll just pull those off and I'll leave this here, so when I want to work down, but I want to be higher than ground level, I can go up 6 inches, and be up in this mid-range and be very comfortable. I took my other box, one of my heavy carving stands, needed to go 18 inches to get her to be at the same level, the same height as that. And that's almost exactly right. I've got to make a fixture under here that she'll set on, and this will clamp this in. Because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to screw this holes here in the back, and I'm going to put like 4 holes in here and screw this to that so it can't move. This is why we use these crates. I know y'all, I realize, I appreciate everybody's watching me for months and months and whatever, and explaining this is why you make the crate, this is why you make the pallet, this is why you got a modeling stand, this is why you make them heavy enough, and this is why you use screws. This is such a good example of this is why, because I went to measuring, and I was going to make another riser, another box for this, and I measured this, and this is 18, I think it's 18 and maybe 16, and then it's 7.5 and 1.5, so it's 9, about 10. 3 different dimensions so it can suit what I'm going to do. I'll screw this to the stand, then I'll screw whatever I make for her, I'll screw it there, because I'm going to be lifting the pointing machine off here on her, measure, come over and do this, and I'm probably going to turn her at least 45 degrees so that I can reach her a little bit better. I may have to do something to put a few blocks here so I can step over and not have to lean over, because I don't want to knock this off. But being able to just reach and take a point will save me literally miles of climbing stairs, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, just to do everything to check it. Hang the machine up on her, it's a perfect place to park it. so I can hang it right back up, put it over here, do my work, check it, hang it back up, take another point, and go back and forth. I think what I'm going to do, I've got to have somewhere to set my tools, and so I'll try to make sure, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to put probably like a 2x something here, screw right to the end of that, and put a little tabletop right here for, set my hand machine on, set my small saw on, set my coffee on, whatever, so I can have it right here so I can just work. And then I'm going to have something over here that doesn't interfere with the pointing machine, where I can have several chisels. Now I have to keep my surround on the bottom so I don't drop a chisel and break that bottom. I'll put a big rag over that too when I get ready to carve. I'll put something for, a tarp or something over there so there's a bunch of cushions so anything falls on it. Plaster on the stone's no big deal. But I'll have this mounted in a way that this is really stable and it's not going to fall over. And this will expedite carving so much, being able to stand in one place, have everything ready to go, and just be able to reach to one side, reach to the other side. I did do a little bit with her eye, so she's not quite as cockeyed. This eye on this side is still down a little bit, needs to go up, and needs to probably come out a little bit. And this side of her face is just a little bit low, so when I carve it, then I got to make her chin bigger because there's a low spot here, and that really skews her face. It really makes her face, and the light's really harsh. I don't, but I think she'll look just fine. And if her head's a little bit big, that's not a problem. It's a lot easier if it's big than if it's small. I'll cut her down to make sure she's the right size for this stone. So it's, but this is coming together really well. And so I got to do a little more actual putting away. I got to do a little more figuring on how I'm going to make this. I brought both pointing machines down. I really want to use, let me hang the camera up and I'll show you the difference again. I really want to use, this is Dario's pointing machine, okay? I want to show you, I'll show you both of them. That's Dario's machine, and this is Angelo's. And Angelo's has, this is just a Milani. This is like what it's easy to buy now. And this only has one joint here that you loosen this, and this can slide in and out, or it can rotate. And then it has one joint here. And that works so much faster than having Dario's machine that has a joint here, comparable to what that clamp would be, but then it's got a ball joint here and a ball joint here. And this doesn't, when you release this to do the adjustment, because a lot of times you've got to move this, and when you move this doesn't necessarily reach right, so you have to break this. And when you break this flops all over the place, and it takes longer to catch up with it than using the one on this old Milani machine that stays in place more. I don't know how else to put it. This doesn't just flop, okay? You loosen this and it goes. And you're more apt to loosen this and move this in a plane, or to rotate this 90, 180 degrees, or you take this clamp off and you'll go, if this is clamped to the chassis here, you'll take it off and you'll clamp it to the chassis on the other side to get that difference. And you don't have that option with this other one from Dario. The problem is that this one is really open. You got all kinds of access. When you hang this up on the stone, on the model or whatever, you got all kinds of reach. It doesn't interfere. And so you can really carve. The issue with Milani one is that you usually have to make a cross or croce or chassis out of lumber, out of wood. And it'll be at least 1 inch, and a lot of times you'll do 1.5 inch, 2 inch by 2 by, you know, that's skinny in order to have it durable. And so you have a 1 or 2 inch strip down the middle of like her face, and that's really a drag because you can't get straight into it. You can work around it. It's a trade-off, and I'm gonna look at what I've got. You know, I've got a whole bunch of chassis on the wall, you know, over here in the corner, that right there past her head there. Let's see, right up in there. There's a whole bunch up in there. All those I've got. There's probably 7 or 8 of them, and I'll look and see what I can reconfigure easily if I've got something. Even if I have to make 2 of them, to have one that's to one side of her face and one that's the other side of her face. And it's worth it because this is so much faster. And when you're doing a little job, spending a small amount, spending the extra time to use the fancier machine, you know, or to step or walk, may be insignificant because, you know, you're adding, I don't know, say you're adding 15 seconds to every transition, all right? But if you're only going to shoot 100 points, and that's 1,500 seconds, which, I don't do the math. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I can remember how to do math that fast. You know, you got 1,500 seconds, and so you're adding, a few minutes to the job. 60 goes into 15, maybe twice, and you want 20. So you're adding 20, you're adding less than half an hour to the job, okay? I'm gonna shoot way more than 100 points. I'm gonna shoot a lot more. And you end up adding so much time because you're doing a bigger job, it ends up being really significant because you could add a day or 2 to a job easily, if not longer. And it's the same thing with having your pallets to stand on and move around and up and down and back and forth. You'll add miles and miles and months of work. You'll add days and days and days, and it's easy if you've got a big, long, like I did a crucifix one time, and I didn't plan on how long it was going to take me to walk around that crucifix to point the model and walk around it to check it on the job and walk around it to check it on the model, back and forth. And you may make several trips just for one point. And wow, it wrecked that schedule. It took a lot longer to cut that stone than I planned. And you'll learn these things. That's why I'm trying to have this as accessible and easy to reach as possible. All right? So I'm gonna look at some lumber and screws and see what I can figure out. Before I go, the points that I'm gonna work with, I already have, I don't know where my pencil is behind the stone. I've already got 1 point. Let's see if we get here. I've got 1 point, 1 nipple here, 1 point over here, already shot in the stone. And then we've got a point up here on her head. And this is all the way to the back. We've got this all the way at the very back, which would be back here off her head. The reason that I did that, we're going to establish the center line on the model, okay, as we set up this point machine. I'll try to go over this thoroughly, probably more than once. We've got our center line, so we have to establish our center line up her. And that's partly going to be the benefit of having this model. We can set it up there. If we want to move this on her, we can move it where we want. We want to tip her head, we want to lean her forward, we want to lean her backward, we can, okay? But we will take a measurement, measure with our standoff, figure out how deep we want to go on her head, where we want it to be, and we'll put a point on this center line up here. We already had these two. We'll put a point here, and then we're going to take this, the pointing machine with the chassis set up here, the chassis. We'll put it on the model, and we'll establish those points over here. One will be above her arm, one will be down, and it may be off the plaster down low here. And then those will establish the vertical. And then wherever we put this point, because we had this one established, wherever we put this point will determine how her head is either straight up and down, if it's leaned forward, or if she's back a little bit, okay? And I like having I found my can full of screws to put the point machine in, you know, once I set everything up. We'll put some screws in her, probably just one in the top of her head, and these other ones will probably be in some type of fabricated base that I put on it, okay? And so I'm gonna try to get all of that put together, and then we'll explain it more thoroughly. But I've got to do that in conjunction with making sure that I've got my chassis that I want to use. And remember, I said, even if I want to set this one up, see, this one's really close already, like almost on the money. I can set this up. You see, that's why it's so tempting to just use this one. Even though it's slower, even though I don't like the needle as much, even though, I can do all these things and get it set right where I want it to be. And then we can just transfer it over onto her. You see, if we put this on her now, just for reference sake, we've got this one above where it needs to be, and then this one's going to be below. There's not material on the model here, so this will have to be supported by whatever I put on there to stabilize her. And she's got to be like on there, bulletproof, fantastic, not going anywhere, so that, and that's not quite there yet. Let go. That's the frustrating part, is that these tubular chassis. And see, I've got longer pipes I can do on the whole length of her, and it's slower to use, and I'd like to figure out a way to eliminate this other bar and just have this clamp directly to here, but I haven't quite figured out how to do it yet without, I haven't just having many parts to do it. So, we'll see. All right. I got to take her down before I bump her and knock her off and smash it. Oh, wouldn't it be good? You probably hear me screaming halfway around the world. And, but I'll start putting this together so that it's not going to move. I'll probably put a board across there and like a full bucket of clay or some weight in the bottom to stabilize it even better. That's why you have a stand like this with a bottom shelf. You're supposed to build it on a great big boulder so you could be carving on it, and then the stand doesn't move. But I'll put a base in that and put some weight in it so it can't move, and I'm going to screw this down here right away, and then we're going to start screwing and building this and make this work. So, all right, let's see what's next. As I'm developing this out of scratch, I had a couple, I don't know, this probably, maybe it's just coincidence, maybe it's just smart, but when I showed you, and I know I didn't put the drawing up for the rollers for the barrel, I'll do that, okay? Just forgot to get it on that video. The way I lay stuff out when I'm making something is I try to lay it out in a way that I can get the biggest pieces left over. Instead of sawing 4 rectangles and sawing a half moon shape, whatever, out each one of them, I'd rather cut out 2 pieces, cut a big round piece out, and then cut them in half, because that round piece has more real estate for me to use later. And for some reason, I put them back. Especially for some reason, all of the weird round big curves. I've had to do multiple things where I've had like a half round niche, or I cut the top out of something and I wanted to make a nice piece and I had just the right piece of scrap to do it. I always keep those curved pieces and throw them in my scrap bin because they just always seem to really come in handy. And this time I was able to use a somewhat oval piece to, I guess it goes, is it like that? I used an oval piece and I trimmed the center out, but this was together like that. And I trimmed it out and this fits fantastic right around her skirt down here. So I can put one piece on the back and one piece on the front, and I trimmed them out different so one holds a different place than the other, so they stress different areas. Works great. And then I had another piece like it. They were in the bin. They're probably from the same thing that I cut out, and made some spacers, put it on, and I'm putting it on, and this is what I wanted to, they'll go on like this, and they'll just sort of clamp her down in there. And then I'll mount up what I need to for armature stuff or for the foundation points. So I'm putting this on here, and she might be perfectly fine in one position for the whole job. And I may want her like that. Or I may do something different and I want her like that. And instead of disturbing this, I can put a Lazy Susan on top of this. This is something that if you're with your gear, with your kit, when you're building your modeling stands and whatever, I would really recommend having Lazy Susans to put on top of them, even if it's not something you use all the time. If it's something that's going to be dedicated that you use, go ahead and do that. Mount it right on there and leave it. I'm going to pause this for a minute, go grab something. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Every time I walk by it, I keep thinking, I got to put that out there and show them. And I think I mentioned it, but I don't know if I had. I know I haven't shown it. So you can make a dedicated, put it right on here and leave it there, okay, to where it just fits. It's also, if you got a small shop, a small studio, and a limited amount of materials and a budget, it's really practical to take 2 pieces of plywood, instead of mounting the Lazy Susan directly to the stand, mount it to another piece of plywood. Then you can turn it 90 degrees, and it's very easy to run a screw through each corner to attach it to the modeling stand or to here. This is a spare one. This is one that I set up like that I move around. And I had it screwed to a modeling stand because I'm just so used to being able to just spin stuff around instead of having to walk around it. That's what I like to do. But anyway, but there's that. So I'm going to take this, screw it to here, and then screw this to that. And we'll have her on a turntable. It's very easy for me to put a couple of wedges or something to hold her in one specific place if I want her there all the time. And then I can just be able to turn her a lot or a little. What I wanted to show you is another Lazy Susan that I've got. And this is something that's just too easy and it's really simple. It's mounted on a big old junk speaker cone, okay? You can put this could set on a stand or set on your table or whatever you're comfortable with. And it makes a really great stand. You can put a skirt on this and use it as a display piece, polish, varnish this up, whatever, however you want to clean it up and make it look pretty. But do that so it's all great. But this is just a really simple way to have a nice little turntable without spending much money, because you can get the big speakers for free. Once they're blown, they're no good. Pull the magnet out, use it for something else, and just use the case for the cone for this. So but these work really well. Been meaning to show you that. So, all right, let me shut this down. I'm gonna move stuff around here. And I gotta take this down and screw it on. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'll be back here in just a few minutes, all right? All right, I got this put together. So she's up there, she turns. I turned this around so I had this extra open space, so I've got more room for tools or my coffee. Good place for my coffee there. And I'll probably put a modeling stand over on this side here, even if I have to put a box on it, so I've got something easy to reach instead of trying to screw that. And I wanted to show you a little bit of this. We're sort of at the end of this video, getting up into the mid-20s minutes, so I'm gonna basically just break this off, and then we'll do a video just on setting up the point machine. I did start this. I'll show you a little bit about what I've got. Got this started so I can use my old one, the one I like better, and I hope I can capture enough of setting this up so that y'all understand it. It should be fairly straightforward as far as setting the points in, and you sort of have to, we started by pointing from our full-length model. Okay, we pointed to what are going to be the foundation points on this job. And this one's not really deep. I got to make that one a little bit more defined. And we set this foundation point up. I did her relatively flat chested. I didn't want her to be a robusty angel because that's normally not how you carve them. So that one's a little bit high, and it shows on this, so our point will be high. It's not a problem to remove material. That's easy to do. But I got to set this up to where I got a good armature on her, and we got to remember that our center line goes up through her over here. Okay, our center line on her, well, you can't really see that. The center line on her is over here with her body, and her head is tilted. Okay, and I know it's hard to see all this on the camera. I'm going to try to put the camera just on the pointing machine stuff here now and get this set up. But appreciate y'all hanging out, and we'll start working on carving, really get to it. And I gotta put together, I gotta slam together this little camellia sketch. And I'll explain that. I don't know that I'll get into showing a lot of that. I may do a video separate on just that to sort of feed in here. But the reason that we did those two little plaster models to try to capture those leaves is that the blossom on that is 4.5 to 5 inches in diameter. And you combine that with the leaves, we're going to carve them on the shoulders of the stone. Well, usually most blossoms are nowhere near 5 inches in diameter. That's a lot of real estate. And so to fit that and have it not look like it's just trapped on there, I'm probably gonna have to take from carving it on the shoulders to tipping the shoulders to having a bevel where it's set on a bevel to give it more room. And so I've got to put that together and field it with the patron to see if they're gonna be agreeable to that. Because otherwise, if it's on a 10-inch stone, 10-inch die, 10 inches would be no problem. You still have some room around it for a margin or border, but for the 8-inch die, it's pretty small for that layout. So anyways, but we'll break this off, and we'll start right back up on the next one, and putting this pointing machine armature together to use the old Malign style. And that probably will work better because that's what y'all will actually be able to buy. You won't be able to buy, like a real antique one like this, and they're pretty, but they don't run as fast. Okay, my name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.